Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, I just put that tray from our first one here on that book, the kind of version of the image in over there, and I'm just going to keep going. I feel pretty good. I'm just going to keep going. This is usually what I do. You know, in the evening time, I'll paint 2 to 3 trays, and during the course of a movie, and you know, I like watching the same movie over and over again. I hear it just for noise. But I still have my palette out here. This is the colors that I use, and I'm gonna paint kind of like the Reaching Bouquet. You know, one that's here. And I just have a color photo of it here. I'm not gonna pull the big tray out here because it's a little bit big. But I'll put some colors in and. We'll get going. We'll see how this goes. Now, I have it on a little bit of a light here, and I'm going to darken it down just a bit. So I'll show you how, and, you know, I'm going to work my palette here. Now, you can, you know, if you want to clean up your palette, if it bothers you, you can just take a damp paper towel and wipe like this, and you can take up your colors. Now, this doesn't always bother me to work on a damp paper, on a dirty palette like this. I get some of this model, as long as I'm not getting too gray of colors, because if you mix up too many colors, you can get kind of gray. But you know, it doesn't always bother me, you know, quite as much. I'm gonna key off of maybe some blue and some burnt sienna here. I love these colors together, and we'll get some of this down. So this is how even though I might be doing a dark tray, I start out kind of light and work the colors in so I can see what they look like here. And so I'll just kind of model those up. See, I love those dark, rich tones here. And I love the burnt siennas coming in something like this, and, you know, just kind of swirling around like that. And, you know, you might pick up a little bit of this, you know, movement of the lighter color from the background back through here. So same palette, same everything, same colors that I used, same colors that are, you know, listed in each of the lessons here. Here I'll go a little more blue right down here. You could put some violets into this and get a little more cool. I mean, that's pretty too. Look at those colors going into that background though. And anyways, and you can lighten some of it up. You know, it's color. It's, you know, it's like I said in the first one here. It's just a little bit of paint and color, and so get it going here. Get some of this in and work this around. Get some movement into your backgrounds here. I'm going to get rid of this light edge at the same time here, just because the light edge will be a little distracting during the painting. I'm not sure exactly what I'll make the edge of this yet, but I'll just get rid of that so my eye focuses in on the tray. Now, on the other, one of the things I did in the big tray is I started pushing a lot of light colors through, which I like. I might even push a little violet into that. I'm going to have to get out some more white here for sure. But I love light colors, and this is what I call making a reaching bouquet, and using your backgrounds to help you move these colors through, and you know, it gives a powerful movement of line movement through. And I'll use some of these other tones up here. Just kind of pop that through. Doesn't it make pretty colors? Here, we'll add a little water, thin that out a bit, move the color. You know, gets that color moving. I don't want to get this too much intensity or too light. I just want to start getting some of the streaky movement of the color coming through. I'm going to get myself a little more white here, out and here, because we're going to be using that here. So we'll get some of this blue, a little bit of violet, quite a bit of white here. Well, that's a pretty color. And work that through. Now, I did a lot of streaking this way, giving that movement. So if you have a reaching bouquet like I show you in the book, you know, it's just kind of growing up with that movement and stuff. And so having that same type of movement into, you know, your painting, zoom, going up like that, just really does a lot. And I like it when it gets like this. It's getting a little sticky and a little draggy, And that just gives you, you know, some people think, oh no, I can't blend it. Well, I'm not blending anyway. I'm not blending. I'm streaking and dragging my colors here. So I'm not blending it. And, you know, so I don't mind if it dries up. It's a different way. And some people, you know, say, well, it's too difficult for me. I want to blend it. And that's okay. You can do that. You can blend that stuff. And, you know, the problem is you tend to overblend and you lose some of the interest. Where here, I get all these models, and, you know, this is a little bit tacky right down here. If I wanted to put some burnt sienna splash, which just adds so much to your composition right down here. I get that nice burnt sienna color coming through here. I can do that relatively easy here. Get a nice color and everything, and not get that blended out too much. And it just gives a fantastic look. And whereas if you touch it a little bit too much, or if you're wet, if you're too wet and you touch it too much, it's all gone. And you know, then what do? You have to go back and restate it again and again. So I find by working pure acrylic like this, I work relatively fast, but and I just kind of streak that around and stuff. I love it. I love it. It works for me, and I can get it done. And then because I want to paint white flowers, and I want to paint white flowers on this dark background. And let me tell you, if that dark background is way too wet when you're starting to paint white flowers, it'll eat them up. It'll disappear. The dark will overpower the light. That's what happens. So I'm going to put a little more blue here, streak that through. Just get this beautiful streak in color. A little bit different than what I did on the big tray there, but I went a little bit more violet. This time I'm going a little bit more of the phthalo here. But I just love that. We'll streak some of that around here. Here, around. Here and down. See, I just love that. And sometimes I'll use my paper towel and just drag the edge like that. You know, by the time we get all the flowers and stuff in here, this is really gonna change. That's pretty. And you can always come back to it as well. So, you know, I don't want to overdo it here. I want to keep going. Let's get rid of this dark edge here. Just drop some of that in. Yeah, we'll do some of those nice light, they're roses, but they look almost like peonies and roses here. Maybe some blossoms with it, just like I show in the lesson there in the book here. But you can see this is how I start out. Like if I'm doing an evening painting, this is what I do. This is how I come in and work the colors, work the tray, set it all up. I'm not always super clean with it, and get some models, some variations of the colors, get a little burnt sienna in there. I just find that this just adds so much, and for me as a selling artist, my clients like it, my customers, my collectors like these types of looks, and they do really well when I have a lot of this movement and stuff into the background. So then all of a sudden that light color tray is down like this, and it's all set up for us to do some white flowers. Now, you know, the thing is, I can come back and add more, and I will. I will come back and streak through and add some more after I set up some of these roses and stuff. But let's go in and do that. So the first thing I got to do is, you know, my background in here, I'm going to look probably around a 7 or an 8, probably in here to set that value scale there. Probably 7 or an 8 here to kind of start up my roses. I'll make kind of a white and gray with burnt sienna and some blue and some white here. 7 or an 8 to kind of start out my roses here. And I'll say, okay, here comes my queen. My queen will come maybe right about in here. She'll be the biggest. Now, when you're deciding on a tray, when I'm painting a tray, I want this whole thing to be lifting up like this. But see how this is still just a little wet right here. It's wet there. It's not wet here. And it'll eat up my paint. I'll be able to set some light color out here, but it'll eat up the color. You can see it's making it into the blue. So I got to let that tack just a bit. But I'm just going to go ahead and set in some colors, set in some ideas of how I'm going to paint these roses and stuff here today. Because I change up every day. But we'll make this, and I'm setting the size. And usually I set the size so it's going to be a wider or bigger than the edge of my tray. So that's going to be fine there. We'll set up one curling up here. Now see, this is nice and dry up here. So you can see I can push this around, but that white went immediately light. That's what I like. As it immediately went light color here. So that's nice and dry up there. And so that one's going to go this way. We'll set up another kind of a gray one, maybe coming up this way here. That hits just a little wet color there, but see, I just set up some of this, so I have a rose going that way, one here, one here, one here, and you see I'm really casual. You know, I don't want to get anything perfect in here. I'll refine the edges and change it up later. Let's drop one right down here, like maybe this is these two will kind of override each other a bit. And maybe a rosebud or something right out here. Here we go. Yeah, something like that. We'll turn one up and out, then we'll fill some blossoms in. But we'll do the roses and stuff here first. Sometimes I'll come in right away with some burnt sienna and some green here. Let's see if I can get this down without spreading my Hansa yellow around everywhere. Get some burnt sienna and some green down, and see if I can pick out. I might even need to go darker with a little bit of red violet into that to see if I can get some of my stems. Now, some of this will cover up, but I'll go ahead and draw it in right now. This is mostly for myself, so I can see the movement that I might want to have in the painting here, where things are going to come up and bend down here. This is what I like to do, and it just kind of gives me the idea of the reaching out of that and up and out of that of this composition here. So we'll drop in. Sometimes I'll go ahead and just drop in some of my greens and my and here I might take the green and a little red violet, which makes a real dark, cool violet. Or dark green, cool green violet here, and just drop some of that in here, just as shadow tones to begin with, and where I'm going to have some of the leaves. And we did that, remember we did that on the Imogen ones. I do the same thing, but the colors have got to be a little darker now. So, and we can make more perfect leaves. We'll do that later. I'm just moving some greens around, and I like to really loosen up the composition, get some of these greens out here, start seeing some of that, and we'll put some blossoms out here too. So some of your burnt siennas, those greens, those colors. Color affects color, so I like to get some of the color out here as soon as possible into some of this, just little touches of it here, so I can start seeing some of that. And we'll have maybe some yellowy blossoms out here, a little burnt sienna and yellow here, maybe a little toned down. You can put a little, I had a little green happening there, so I just put a little violet in it, and it kills that. But let's put on, we'll have some yellowy type blossoms out here. Let's get some of that yellow going out here. We can turn some of this. See, I'm just putting strikes of color, and where I might have little blossoms and stuff, so I can see the color. This is how I really like to paint, so I can see the color, where the colors are going to be, and I'm looking to move the colors around the composition here. So we'll put a few little bits there, a little bit showing up little bits of that showing up here and there, so I'll get that. All right, and now those of you that have survived going through this is really casual. But this is how I do it. I'm sorry. I let it fly. I just go out there and I put this in, and then I start to refine it, and then I start to bring in its shape. And so many people think, oh, you get that casual look. You get that casual look like that. Yeah, this is how I do it. I just let it fly, and then I go in and start shaping it up. If I start shaping it up perfect from the very beginning, I find I get too stiff. It gets really stiff looking. I don't like it. So I got to let it fly. And so, it does work. It does. If you can get through it, it works, so. Put just a bit more of that yellow around there. Won't that be pretty? All right. So let's get some of our quinacridone here. Let's set what we're going to be doing with the depth of the rose. Maybe a bit of yellow oxide into it. We'll set the gaze of the rose here, gazing up like this. Some quinacridone. And that's still a little bit wet. I really like that to dry up just a bit. Get some quinacridone into that. Here comes the shadow side of that, in and out here. We have to decide. If we're going to paint these more like a little rose peony type thing, I'm going to drop the center towards the center of the flower a little bit more, almost like what we did with the imaging, but not quite. And let's drop some warm color of some yellows in there, just to break up those light colors. Okay, so you get that in there and see it's just, yeah, and it's really casual, really casual. Let's drop this one in. That one's going to be pretty, because see how it got more white on it right away, and see how much more pretty it is with the white. That's why I like to really get that well, that one came out just really pretty right now. Just push that in and around like that, and a little bit of that shadow. That one just came out real pretty. And while that's wet like that, I might put on some more color and build up that front. I do like to do that too sometimes, and build that up, pull that in like that. And you see, I came down here and I hit that pink and I stroked it up there. Now, I knew I was going to hit that. Remember, I told you about that in the imaging. I knew that that's going to carry up there because I saw where I was going to hit it. But I let that happen that time because in my mind, I'm thinking pink up there might be kind of pretty. So I just go ahead and let it happen. Now, I'll paint the edge. This is where I'll start to refine that just a bit. Maybe I'll pick up a little bit of my shadowy type tones in that and lift out of that, so I'm not, perfect there, but I'll paint the edge up here, and I'll push to shear off some of that color here. Yeah, so we'll paint a petal out to here, and we'll drag a few out this side. Just let that just kind of fade away there. Let's drop this one out. Change that direction a bit. Then pushing it out just a touch like that to set that motion onto that petal. Let's go a little bit transparent. I just added a little water, maybe a little bit back to some of our first original gray, and just push that back through there like that. Push that right down into that center to get some of that movement. That's what I'm looking for, is that flower movement there. Let's come back out, lighten up, warm up here, maybe a bit of the warmer yellows up here by that. Little thicker paint so I can strike a more opaque front on this flower, which I want to have for it because it's got to be built off of this dark color of the background. So I use the colors a little bit more opaque. Now that's looking pretty good. I like just the movement like that and the soft edge there of that. I like that. Now there's a lot of paint there, and if I keep moving it, it's just going to go everywhere on me. So I'm going to just add a stroke or two right up over here to kind of close up this edge of the rose here. Just push that around like that, and I'm going to let that tack up for a bit, and I'm going to go back over to my main rose here. Let's get some of this nice warm light. Let's go back to the main rose that's going to be right up in here, and let's start building some of that front light color, and just kind of push that around a bit. There, and it's nice thick paint. This is the thing, usually when I'm painting on darker backgrounds, I start to use the paint really thick, and you can see how it just kind of smooshes around there. But you can only do that when you get this paint really thick like this. You can you can only do that for a while, smush it around before it starts to become one color. So you can only do it a couple of times, so you can't get wild and crazy with it. Let's get a petal like right out here. Push that in and out. See that nice movement that I get from that thicker paint. The thicker paint, the thicker you can paint with your color, the prettier the petals you actually get, because you get nice shearing movement here of that thick color, of that thick paint. That's really kind of nice. Here, let's get that around. There. That's kind of nice. Now, that one is starting to get a little big. It really is getting a little bit big there. So, because I don't want it to encroach too much on that one. So, I have two choices. One is I can wipe it down. The other is I paint it back. And I'm going to paint it back here with a little negative painting here. Let's just take some of that down with my greens. Maybe a little bit of blue into that and some burnt sienna. And let's just paint that back and leave a little bit more of a space here between my two roses there. And that's a bit better. See, that's just a bit better. And I've got some nice movement in there. So we'll just kind of push that around a second. Starts to grow. I reached out too far. But it's paint. It's easy to change. It's easy to change. Let's add just a bit of water to this. It's starting to dry up just a touch. And you could also add extender. But, if you notice, I'm trying to let things dry. So that's one, because I want to move stuff around. And so it's, adding extender is something I don't want to do because I'm not blending on these flowers. I'm not blending. They look blended, but I'm not. I'm painting a tone and I'm pushing it, shearing it. So let's come out here a little bit, touch some of that out there. That's good. Let's get a warmer red. We'll add some Naphthol red light to this and kind of warm up a pinkier tone in there. Maybe some yellows in there. That looks pretty in there as well. Get some of those tones working around in there. And yeah, I just love this. Just drag some of this down this side here. I'll let that stop there for just a moment. And let's go out onto this one here, slightly different. We'll build, let's see, we want this maybe turned down just a touch here. Should put a bit of white there to build it and lift it. I'm going to rinse some of that out of my brush, grab myself a bit of quinacridone, and let's set the gaze of this rose. Here, a little cool color down over here. Let's push that in and around. I just push it into the shape of that little rosebud that I want there. And I can start building a little bit. Maybe I'll set this petal up on top of that one. See, and then what that does is it pushes that other rose right back. So add just a bit of yellow to that, warm that just a bit more. And then we'll let it, then we'll pull out on this side over here so that those edges get lost. But on the top side, which is my light side, because my light's coming in like this, I can do more of the petal edge and pull in and out, leaving that edge, which leaves it a little bit more defined. We'll build a little bit more light here onto the, like a bowl of it here. Here we go up like that. There we go. Now that's a lot of paint on there, so I'm going to stop there and let that tack up for just a minute. I might be able to, this is still really kind of wet. I'm going to let that, well, I might try to pick up a little bit more white, and we're just going to hit the front of that. This is, I really like the fronts of the flowers there to really have that hit. I can pick up a slightly bit of darker color here and just slide in the shadow here of that, shaping that up a bit. There, like that. Just a little bit. I think I like that one. Maybe a bit of light right out here on the tip of this one, coming in a bit. There. A couple of, lighten up the tip of that one there. That's just kind of a pretty little rose sitting out there. How's this doing? Starting to tack up a bit. I like it when it starts to get tacky and sticky. That's when I like to paint them. Now we want to get some movement here, almost like a peony rose. Set some of this around that movement here. So we'll open up the rose a bit more. And we'll drop and build this center. Around and around and around. The bottom of that bowl is going to come down quite low, so your reaching petals are not really out there too far. Let's close this down here, just like that. So I'm painting it up tighter here. We can start another layer of petals in, kind of like the Imogen a little bit. Because the Imogen roses look just almost like a peony. You know, they're very close to that. We can start another little petal here. There, like that. Just the look of that one. And it's really great to get this really thick paint. But you've got to, you've got to let it tack up a bit. Otherwise, it just gets so hard to paint with it because it keeps eating up every one of your colors. So it's beautiful technique. It just takes a second for it to tack up. So I'm going to pull out like this on this one and in and out, and then I'll push it in and out to create that movement here. Like that. That's kind of pretty, and I don't want to climb. Okay, just be careful. That's my habit, is I tend to grow things. I think that's a habit of a lot of artists. We tend to grow things. Take some of that out. I can negative paint it back, though. That's the beautiful thing about it, is I can. I know how to do that. So we can restate some of our cool color. Now, that's a bit bright, so if I put a little yellow in it, which is almost a complement, a little bit of my background, that dirties that right up, and it's not quite so bright. That's just kind of a pretty color. Let's drop a bit of our yellow in there, too. Just a bit of that. And we'll let that tack up a bit here, so you get those colors. I just love that color. Let's head some of that into the center here as well. And get some of that, maybe a strike or so of that yellow back out here as well. And see, that yellow's kind of nice to keep in there because it's going to pull the colors of the blossom right out into our painting as well. So we might want to strike right out here with some of that, and maybe right down here. Kind of like what we did on those Imogen and stuff. It's striking that light color there. Part of that, incorporate that into some of that rose there's kind of pretty. Here. There we go. Yeah, let's come back and strike some of that yellow right up into this one here. And then we'll go hit a few more light petals out here. Use your finger to incorporate it, or push the movement into it. There, like that. Sometimes I use that chisel to put that angle. I show you that in the book. You know, this. And pull that in. Here, get that a little bit lighter. Get some of that movement. Let's just take a nice light strike, thick light paint, and just put the front of that bowl on there. And pull that out. There, just let some of that sit out there like that. I like that. And the question is, do I do some more out here? And I'm not real sure. Maybe with a softer light, close that up just a bit like that. That might be pretty. And just leave it real, real misty open like that. That's kind of pretty, kind of different. And I'm always painting for difference. Let's pull some of that out here. And I try to look, when I do that, I try to look for different lengths so I don't make a perfect round circle all the time. I don't like doing that. It's a habit of mine to make that a perfect light circle, and I just don't like doing that all the time. So I consciously paint to avoid it. So let's put a lighter kind of petal right up there in the front. So you see, I'm just kind of pulling it down, watching that bowl shadow there so I don't lose that. Pulling it down, and if I do lose it too much, I just wipe my brush and lift off like this, and see that shadow still underneath there. So it's easy to bring it back. Paint some of this light in and out. Painting for movement, that's what I do more than anything else. I paint for, the petals will come, but I got to get this bowl movement down the way I want it here. That's the bowl here. Got to get some of that movement down the way I want it. Let's get a few lighter petals turning down in here. Into that. Here and around. Closing up this center. We're going to close up this center, some of this Imogen type movement here. And around. There, like that. Just kind of curve it around. Leave just a little bit of that center. And this is where I like that real mottled color and stuff coming through here. We'll paint it a couple times. But you get some of the blues kind of there, some yellows, and some of these other little colors. This kind of starts to give it that peony type look here. That closing up. Here, let's take this more on the, like the little chisel, I push like that. And it's a technique I call drawing petals. I actually draw the petal, the shape of that petal, using almost the corner of that flat, just with that light color. And that's a little too blue down into the center of that. So let's get some yellow in there. Get some of that Quinacridone. That's my pretty color. Just a bit of that. Boy, that is really pink. Get a little bit of burnt sienna in it. Quinacridone, just look against that dark, just look really pink. So put a little burnt sienna in it. Let's grab some of this and put a little yellow. This is a little blue here, so I'll put a little yellow and a little burnt sienna in it, gray that back up a bit. And let's get some softer little colors here for this kind of turned down rose here. Here we'll push them up and around. You're going to see just a tiny bit of the center there. And then we'll turn the petals more coming back this way. Now push that on, shear it. This is what I like to do. And see that that shear is just so pretty and leaves that nice light edge out there. This is all dry here, so it works so well. And I'll shear that off. So this is one reason why I don't like to do it too wet. See how easy that shears and it works so nice? You know, if it's too wet, you end up fighting it a bit. So I'm just going to shape this up and pull down just a bit. There. Shape up that. And let's get a few more little petals here. Pull out. Let that get lost out there. Like that. Let's take a bit more white, a little bit lighter. Build this front edge of the rose here, the bowl here. Just put on some color and get some movement in there. You know, this is out of our center of interest here, so I'm just going to paint for some movement into this rose here. There, like that. That's pretty. Let's get that white that I have up there has a lot of blue in it, and I'm kind of fighting it a little, so I'm going to put a little fresh white right there. See if I can stay out of the blue. See the little bits of blue tracking in there, which aren't bad. It can help you change your color up, but that phthalo blue is really powerful, so if you get too much of it around, it'll dominate your painting. So I don't mind little touches like that in it. I think that adds to it, you know, the overall feeling of the painting, but it can frustrate you because it is so powerful. It's difficult to get it back out. Let's put some of that in and just pull that right from the bowl right out. Push that right out. Just make sure I preserve that bowl. And see, it just starts to make a pretty little rose. I always push and pull, you know, heading in and out of that bowl here. See, like that. And it just, and with that shearing it off like that, see, it just works so nice. Now, I've got just a touch of a hole right here, so I'll just lighten up and really kind of put that front bowl petal right there, an edge of that. Maybe round one right up in here so that rounds the look of that bowl. There, like that. And that kind of makes a pretty little flower coming down there. We could have a touch more light on it right here. There we go, just like that. That's kind of pretty. And yeah, it builds a nice light flower that just kind of wispies off here. I like that. And I can, you know, one of the things that that I haven't shown you here is you can take a little bit of water on a paper towel and push through that to lift off any back edge or soften any back edge off. Or like here, I drug this out a little too far, so I can, you know, back that color back out. I can also do it with negative painting as well, which is my preferred method, is negative painting it. But you can do it a multitude of ways. There's a lot of different ways to do it here. So let's just build this right back up a bit. I hit that with that wet paper towel. And, you know, I think I'm going to leave that for right now. We might come back and revisit that, but leave that for right now. We'll put a little more violet in. Just a little touch of that yellow with that. Boy, that's still wet right in there. And I haven't added anything to it. It's just that because I'm using so much paint, you know. And that's what gives you that. And that's the other thing, you know, I showed that in my online classes. You know, that's the majority of the time that your acrylics dry too fast. It's because you don't use enough paint. You might thin it out with a little bit of water, and that's the fast drying thing. Then you don't use enough paint, and they dry really, really fast. So use a lot of paint. As you can see here, it's not drying here. So I'll build this up a bit here. This front up, this up a bit. Pull through just a touch there. Get some of that nice transparent type color happening in there. I like that. A little bit of an edge here on this petal. Edge there. Let's go grab some pure white here. Just pull that in. Pull a bit of that pure white, different look to a petal there. Maybe a nice little strike right here into the very front of that rose right there. And yeah, let some of that fade away here. A little bit more of an edge right here. Pulling in. Let's go gray it down a bit. So it's a little bit grayer. Pull that edge back. See, that gives a nice, and that pure white right up here just lets that rose sing. Now see, I can hit that and lift that off, and there's that shadow underneath there. So I use that a lot actually in rose painting. I call it the lifting off technique, where I paint one way and paint the other way, lifting off any type of little shadow. So I go back and forth between applying some real thick color and lifting off until I shape the flower or the petal kind of the way I want. I want these pulling down in, but also I'll use that to kind of shape the petals and pull in and here. There we go. Just get that in like that. Kind of a pretty little flower there. And let's go out and paint the back side of this one back here. A little more toned. So a little bit of my yellows, a little bit of my violets, touch of blues. Nice grayed color back here. Onto this one. Way off here in the back. Maybe put a little bit of water in it so it can transparent out. That's what I like to, that's the main technique I like when I shear that like that. Then we'll build a little more color here in the front. You know, like those are the light petals right up here in the front. It's turned back. It's the light petals there. And maybe a petal or two right out here like this. So it looks like it's, push that in and out. That rose is open just a little bit. Here. Maybe a nice angled petal here. There we go. Yeah, it's kind of pretty. And we won't paint too much into that. It does its job, see? And let's put a little blast of yellow in there so it carries some of that. And just a little tiny touch of some quinacridone right in there. Quinacridone violet. So it picks up just a touch of that. And that's all that rose needs, see? You know, it doesn't need that much. After painting that, I really want to build this back up there. So I'll go do that. Maybe an edge of these petals here. And see, this is where you got to be careful that you don't just keep revisiting it and it's all becomes the same. But I'm just looking for other little touches that I can do to little, I start to think the petite little touches to shape and make things fun here, like that. Now, there's a back one back here that I'd kind of sketched in. And let's keep this kind of darker, a little cooler, a little bit of my violet into that. Here, let's push one, let's push it in here, let's get it in here, the shape and stuff of it, and let it sit in the back. So we're not going to put too much light in it. Let's put just a bit of green with that quinacridone that will gray it down, darken it just a bit. See, so it's it pushes in there, so you see the color in there, but it's not quite as bright as the other ones here. And let's just take that gray color, add a little yellow to it, so our yellows will be slightly gray here as well, just like that. And see, I just push that with my finger real fast. I'm going to rinse my brush, and with some of these grayed colors, loosen it up with a little water so you're a little bit transparent, so your color doesn't have a lot of power to it. Let's just quickly kind of tap around, do that pettit thing. Give a little movement there. A little bit of water here, so you're a little transparent. Color doesn't have quite as much opaque power. And it pushes really easy. It paints really easy, and it'll set a nice transparent back there and sit back behind this other one. Here around like that. We go just a little bit of movement in that. Maybe an extra little petal coming out like there. And just a touch lighter here, just like that, to give another. And so I'm just building up a little bit lighter here on this side, which, you know, like it's coming out of the shadow kind of there, just a bit. So just don't go everywhere with that. You're just lifting it up with just a little bit more light, a little bit more white. And that's kind of enough for that flower to sit there like that. And yeah, that works. I might put a, we said we can come back and revisit this one here, so I might put a little bit of light, slightly different angle here, like that. Maybe a little chisel edge of a petal here, so it looks a little different. Here, a little bit of the bowl shadow there. Just see, it's not really a petal, it's just kind of like the edge of a petal there. Okay, so now, so that's where we are now. Now we can come back in here. Let's splash around. Let's take a little burnt sienna and a little bit of our quinacridone. Let's splash that around just a bit back in here with some of our yellows here. And again, that's in a color carried into the roses, so it's going to incorporate all of them as well. Around, splash that around here. Let's come here. Let's drop in some yellow oxide, maybe a touch of Hansa here. Then we'll lighten up. We'll be doing a couple of values here. We'll lighten up a little bit more yellow here. Let's build. We'll build a few little petals of ideas of flowers here. I have to set the size. Now I don't want the size, you know, I kind of like them a bit smaller, and I don't want it, so I don't want to compete against the rose too much. But let's try a few little angles in, a few little sizes here. Pull in and out on that soft side here. So I definitely make a petal side here. Pull in, definitely make a petal side, and the light side here. There, like that. Some of our, this one right here, we might make this a little back turned, or, you know, it's one that's kind of turned out. You don't want to always just make them flat. You know, that's my habit, so many years of decorative painting, just to make them flat, and I don't want to do that. So I turn them and twist them, and here I'll make this one. A little bit of pink into that. Come right in here a little bit. Let those push in and out of that center. That's kind of a nice little one there. And add a little water to this and do a few little thin markings right out here as you're leaving that. So it'll look like little petals and little things fading away. Now we come back. We might even pick up a little bit of Hansa with this and some white. We'll make a slightly lighter yellow that we can hit the highlights with. But we always watch our queen. Always watch that you don't get lighter than your queen. Here. So I like this petal points to the queen. It says, go look at the queen. There. This one here, out like that. Nice little twisted flower there. There we go. Just, and you see, when you're painting a bouquet, it's kind of like painting a hydrangea or something like that. You don't have to have every petal forming a flower. You can just have some petals in there, and the viewer will start to pick up and start to see flowers. You don't have to have perfectly painted little flowers in there. Let's come back out over here to this side. Let's take a little yellow and a little violet, a little burnt sienna. Tone it down a bit so it's a more softer, orangier type color out here. Push it around a bit. Doesn't have to be yellow. And I'll come right in between there so I can see those petals and maybe add a little bit more of an edge or so. A little lighter petal right in there, and bring that forward just a touch. And out here, I might want this to really just kind of fade away. I might put, shape up more of a petal like this out here, but it's turning out and it's dropping your eye a different direction. But I don't want to make a whole bunch of blossoms out here and pull the viewer's eye way out here as well. So I want to keep them kind of soft. And so we start with those orangey colors. Don't get them as light as this other side here, or up in here. Don't get it as light as these guys out here. We'll do a few little. So see, I pull out a lot when I want to make soft petals. We'll push in just a bit to make some more defined ones. There, like that. And some soft little color movements out here. Same thing out here. A little bit of burnt sienna and green gives you a nice grayed kind of yellow here. To push some back in here. You don't really need to back in here. We might not even make blossoms. We might just out there like that. Oh, let's put one right in here. Maybe just the idea of one, but no lighter than like yellow oxide by itself, because we have the light up there. So we want to just suggest. Let's take some of that just suggest right out here. Maybe some of the dark. And see, it just I just put like real quick little movements like that out there. I don't need a ton. I've got a lot of the painting, the beauty of the painting done right in here. So I don't need a lot of stuff going on. And that's the thing. What you're doing is you're painting supporting areas out here. So when you're painting supporting areas, don't get wild and crazy and make all these blossoms the same as those, because you'll just take away from the other part of the painting. Just add a few little ideas of some of the movements and stuff and get out of there. That's enough. Just get some of that movement around. And so I got that nice light. I do like that light happening up in there. And I do from time to time revisit my lights, my blues, my lights here. And let's lighten this up. Model some phthalo, some phthalo, some little bit of quinacridone and some light, and let's just drag. I do this a lot in my paintings. I'll drag some of that down and through some of the painting here. Let's thin that out just a bit. Sometimes I'll use a little extender to thin it out so I have a longer working time, but most of the time I don't, because I just like to streak it like this through and get some of that working through that light. See, and I let that not destroy, but soften out some of the edges, in the painting here. And I like that, and I'll pick up a little bit of that yellow moving through. That's nice. Some of that goes through and picks up, and that's what I really like when that kind of stuff happens. And so now you get that, in that whole front section of the book on the reaching bouquet, I talk about doing this kind of stuff and creating movement within your paintings. This is what I like to do. This is what I do with it here, to create that movement. And I follow that down through. I might change it a little bit. But I will, follow that right on down through. I like that look to come down through. Thin it out quite a bit here. Maybe just a touch darker. Thin that, but I like that sheer. I like to leave some of that streaks and those sheer like that, so because that just adds a lot of interest. And you might come in here and you might end up covering this up with leaves, but you might put a few other little touches around the bouquet, and this is what beautiful alla prima representational painters do, where they like to paint that movement and stuff. Yeah. So we'll go grab this and just pull down. Grab a bit of that. Let that just pull down there. Some of that water in there. I'm watching the streaks and the movement there. I'm putting into that. And that's pretty good. That's I might want to make this a little more powerful right through here. I like that power of that light right down through there, especially heading right to the queen. There. And see, then I can take that and negative paint back and push some of it back, but I have a good deal of movement there that I can now push back. So I would come in here now, let's take some of our green, burnt sienna, and maybe a touch of my red violet, which makes a nice cool dark green. And this is what you can use to come in and negative paint around, get some leaves going back in here again. But you've got that nice movement in there, see? You have that nice movement there. And so we've got that light colored movement going through. We can come in and negative paint here. Let's get our stem back to our flower there. And I might put that stem in when I start to go this dark. I usually put the stems back in with some light, but I'll start to come around the painting here with some of this nice green. Vary the color. If I need a nice deep shadow here, I'll put in some more red violet into it here. Just like our first ones, we'll start to shape up some Imogen roses and stuff as well. But I start adding our greens and our variations of our greens now back in. I'll leave some of that blue. See, some of that blue will stay in there as just a nice little bit of interest. And a little water here to thin this out. But I can use some of this right as a little bit of negative painting and maybe a leaf shape right there. Right going in towards that flower. And that's what I start to look at, is to shaping something up. Like right here, I might want to shape up the back side of this little flower here. Make that like a little leaf shape, but then see it lifts that flower just a bit. Here comes, we can do the stem here with this dark on this one because of the light background. There comes our dark. Maybe a more traditional oval leaf shape here, and push and lift that, shear that off like we did with the Imogen ones. So I start filling up around the design, especially up and around these flowers, and see a negative painting, and now they start to come to life. See, start to pop off. Now you can also go to the light flower, the light leaves, like we did. you know, because we're going to want some of that. But I usually use the darks like this and get some of that pine green and that red violet and vary it with some burnt sienna. But I usually use the darks like this to kind of set some of those shadows, nice shadow movements. We can now come in, and because of that light that's there, that'll help our stems show back up again. And since we have a pretty good size bouquet here, give your stems some power to them. Let them have some power, some thickness here, like that. Maybe some with a little more burnt sienna there. That's kind of nice. So I get this dark. See, I can negative paint this one, even with that dark. You thought that's pretty dark down there, but you can still negative paint that. That pine green and red violet is so dark. It puts up a nice dark and just lifts that flower a bit. Here. And you know this, why do I know this? Is I paint all different kinds. I paint all different kinds of shapes and colors and try, and then you'll remember them, and that's how you grow. You change colors and try some different things, and of course your color theory helps you a lot. You know what colors work and don't, and the values, intensities, temperatures. But, and that's for me. I think that it's the color theory for me that helps me as a flower painter more than anything else. Now, I like that little blur there, but I might shape that just a bit here. And that pushes that rose forward just a touch. Do you see that? Just a little bit there. See, all that color variation now really plays in. There. Let's put just a touch of that dark right in here. And that lifts that petal up, but you still have that little bit of blue there to help that. That's kind of pretty. Let's get the burnt sienna. I like burnt sienna, a little red violet. Let's get that down into the deep parts of the centers here of some of these flowers. We're going to put centers on them. You don't have to. But I like little centers. As long as they don't detract too much from my queen, I like to put a idea of the center. Now, and I love to take the corner of the brush, tap that with some yellow oxide, and then tap it with a little bit of Hansa. Start on, since you have more Hansa on the brush right now, start on the light side, tap it, then lift the pressure as you come around, and the Hansa runs off, and you're back to the yellow oxide, and that gives you a nice light side and shadow side here to the bud and to the blossom, and you can push the edges there to soften some of that around, which is, I like to do that so it gets a variation to it. We'll tap a little bit more. There we go, around like that. That one's pretty. Maybe just a touch there, or just a bit of an indication of it. This one we'll tap back into it with a little bit of our red to set it back, because it's down here into the shadows just a bit. Get just an idea back there. So if it's into the shadows, I'll go back and touch a little burnt sienna and a little red into it. So like here, I might want to just reach back into this and just tap it back into it, see, and it creates the shadow right back here and softens it out and pushes it back just a bit. Do just a little there, just a little here, just a little, and we'll push a little shadow I like to do it real quick, and because that keeps them all different, rather than just tap, 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 tap. They all get a little bit different in there. Now, we'll go back and revisit just a few areas, a little more light right onto here, so this petal comes right up on top of that other one there. That's why I start to look for little things like that. I might want to take a bit of my gray, a grayed color here. Let's get a bit of that violet into that softer color, and just push back on the bottom of this rose so that it drops down just a bit. It's a little too light right down there. There, so that drops down just a bit. You can even take some of your background kind of colors that you were using, those greens and stuff, thin it out here and do just a little bit of a wash on it. Drop that back down. That looks pretty good. Now, my yellows could get, in a few places, they could get a little lighter, which would give you more compositional interest. So I might take a little Hansa and a little white right here and look to some of the blossoms, like right up here. And see, the thing is so you make a few of them, not all of them. Don't go traveling this around. Let this help you with your light source here. Get these nice light, couple of nice light ones right up here. And let this be your, let it say that, see, your light's coming in through there. The others aren't getting that light. See, so this definitely says light coming just as the bouquet is reaching up to this side. So the light's coming this side. So the flowers are growing up towards the light, which is what they do. So we'll put a bit of that in there. That's pretty good. Now, the thing I like to do is, let's go back until we have that. Let's take some pine green, some Hansa, nice big brighter green, a little bit of my blues and stuff in there too. I'd like to have some of that. Sometimes if I feel it's too bright, I add just a touch of the quinacridone to it. I'll start some nice lighter greens here, and also make some slightly lighter, a little pine green, a little burnt sienna right here like this. Let's make some slightly lighter little greens here, leaf shapes here. Pull out, maybe hit a bit of that light right onto the edge there. Right like that, a little difference there like that. That's kind of pretty. So we'll put one right in here. Grab a bit of that light. And see, it's not perfectly mixed, so I get some variations as I'm stroking this. And darker background, I tend to lift off from the shadow side. That's kind of pretty. Let's put in that stem there, just like that. You might want to hit the stems just a few areas here, just as a little bit of light hitting that. But some of these can have their lights there. I love that. That's a pretty green right there. That Hansa burnt sienna and a little bit of that pine green. Such a pretty green. Yeah, it's such a pretty green. That looks great. Add a little bit of that around. And you can add more Hansa and a little bit of light to lighten it up here. Just a touch of green. I like to constantly brush mix and play my greens. To me, and I've said this 1,000 times in books over the years, the most common element in all of your paintings of your flowers and stuff is the leaves. And we tend to paint our leaves all one color. A lot of us do. So, and they're the thing in the composition that is seen the most. There's more leaves in the composition than anything else. So it's something that you should be changing quite a bit, in the painting. So I'll pull out there a little bit, put a little bit of idea of a vein line there. make an oval, you know, and pull out a bit. Let's get more green here. So some of these back here are not as bright. Here, just little bits of green, not as bright. I like just touches. I don't like to shape them up too much. I'd like to shape them up around the center of interest, and then after that, I don't do that too much. I just kind of move color around here. And because the shaping of it can actually get distracting to your composition. So, you know, I mean, you get perfect shapes out here and stuff, and that can start detracting. So, yeah, so that's coming along. You can see some of that coming along here. Let's get that a little darker, a little cooler. So you see, I just love to model and play with those leaves and stuff, those colors. Get some of those colors going. Here. Yeah, that's nice. So even the ones that I put on and, you know, kind of sheared off here earlier, I'll come back and touch some of them like I did at the Imogen ones there. Touch some of them, lighten them up just a bit, get a little difference going. There, I just love to work the leaves again and again and again, go around again and again and again. It just gives that lovely movement and stuff. And you can negative paint around again if you need to, but yeah, it all works really nice. Let's get some green here. Maybe one more right here, because it looks like two wings coming out right here. So we'll drop one right in here. Kind of cover and push back that blossom a bit. Push just a bit of light onto it. Give it a little bit of a vein line. There, like that. It's kind of pretty. Let's hit some of that light right here on maybe this one. Idea of a vein line. There. Darken it down a bit. Just little touches. And I think that's getting pretty darn close, because I don't really want to do any more. Now I go back and especially when I'm painting something like this, I go back and I look to my center of interest, my main queen. Does she need anything more? Now's the time, you know, as everything's drying down. And usually I like to just hit one last little bit of light, especially texture. And you can see how that can show up there, see? Right up here into the front, the main front of her here, and bring that right up front. Got to be careful. I've got a lot of colors around my white. I don't want to dirty her up too much. So that really pops that up, and I can lift a little bit lighter. So I'll gray it down just a bit, but a little bit lighter right in here, since I lit her up a bit. Bring that rose just a touch farther forward. Maybe here on this edge, comes up over that leaf. Push that in and out. Let a little of that green come through. See, it was wet. You know, who says acrylics dry so fast? That green there was still a little wet. Why was it wet? Because I put it on thick. Because I had it in there thick. And it's still wet. And there. That makes kind of a pretty little flower just sitting up there. Let's put just a touch of that gray lifting underneath there. Just push maybe a bit of that edge. Always think an edge for pettit. There. Just like that. That's kind of pretty. That worked out kind of pretty there. Now, you know, for the outside edge now, you know, what are you going to do out here on the outside edge? I like it. I like the frame of it dark. You can go back to, you know, I like the frame of it dark. You could go back slightly to like a darker red, a darker green, any of those kind of colors. I usually, since I have a lot of blue and stuff into the background, I kind of default to a dirty toned blue or violet, blue-violet something. And so I'll start taking all of my colors here. Let's take some of my greens. I love the color of the gray that you get, the darker gray from a little red violet, a little phthalo blue, and then this complement of the blue, the Naphthol red light. And that really gives this a nice dark grayed color. As a matter of fact, you can keep it a little bit red there. And it's a real super dark color that would frame this tray, I think, really quite pretty. And I'll put that right in here onto the edge. A 3/4 inch brush. Yeah, that's a real pretty frame. Dark color framed there on that tray. See how that just, and it's just going to make everything pop, I think, here. So we'll add that. I mean, do you add a stripe or something to it? You could do that if you want. I got a little bit of texture in my fingers there on that part of the tray. So here I started out with a light gray tray. We painted it right on down. And this is what I do. This is why, you know, I go through and I have base coat days for boards and trays and everything. And I usually give them some type of light grayed color. And then I can adjust it. I can go all the way down to the dark. And I like to do that because as I'm adjusting it, I'm adding all kinds of nice movement and stuff to the, you know, to the painting, to the background. And I play and try all different kinds of things. And that's the beauty of art. And that's what you've got to do as an artist. Is you've got to try some different things. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't work. And, you know, sometimes it does. But that's how you learn. You know, I always tell my students, you don't learn from doing it correctly. You learn from making a mistake. Oh, I'm never going to do that again. You know, that's how you learn. So, but yeah, this frames this tray up really pretty, I think. So this is out of the book, this is like how I add movement here to a design. And so you can see that. And then I'm just going to kind of clean up and use up my palette here for this painting. We'll consider this one done here. I don't think I'll put a stripe or anything on it. You could, but I don't think I will. Sometimes I do. It depends on the width of the border and stuff, you know, and that's more of a decorative application to it. So sometimes I do. I like the containment value that it gives it, the ability to contain a design and stuff, but you know, this doesn't really need it. I like how it pulls you, this dark color frames it here, and it pulls your eye right into the painting there of the lights. And yeah, you got it. You got that there. So that's how I go about doing that. Now you look at all that when you thought I was nuts, didn't you, when I started this painting? It's like, how is he going to pull that off? Well, it works every time. I mean, I just start it and then I start to develop it. But if I find myself, if I start to develop it too soon, or if I start to make shapes too perfect too soon, I just don't like the painting. It just makes it too stiff. So I have to get out there and do stuff really wild and crazy to begin with, and it's a lot of fun. So there you got it. So that one took a little bit longer, but you got 2 trays there, okay? And you have your book. And so paint along and try to do some things and play with some colors, and send us some photos and stuff. We'd like to see some of the stuff. For those of you that are on Jansen Art Online, pop into the Artist Network there and post them in there. We'd all like to see it. I'll give you a pat on the back, and you make something like this. It's really quite fun. So they got it. Okay, thanks a lot. I'll see you next time. And as always, if you have questions, just write us. Go over to Jansen Art Online, hit the contact button, and those emails go right directly to me, and I'll help you with something. All right? Okay. See you next time.